Hi everyone, Linda here with Erica Michaels, and it's time for Nashville. It's just as I'm sitting here, I'm 2 weeks away from arriving at the hotel in Franklin, Tennessee, and I'm ready to show you my new items. There are 7 titles altogether, and so sit back, enjoy the video a little bit. I'm in a snow day today, and it's cold outside, but we all know what we can be doing when we have a snow day. So here we go. Nashville. First up is a trio of berries that were one of the berry clubs from Dying to Stitch a few years ago. These are the Birdsong Berries. There are 3 berries. And I called them Birdsong because each one has a bird. One for the morning, so this is the mourning dove berry. And then we have the goldfinch. I don't see these too often here, but I love it. They're just adorable. And then lastly is the nightingale. And tucked in on this side of the berry is also a little owl. So these are the 3. The motifs that they're kind of tucked into are all from a little smallish antique sampler in my collection. I've not reproduced the sampler, but it has some real interesting little motifs here and there. And so they fit really nicely with these little birds. The top treatments are really very simple. They're all 3 finished the same way, just with different colors that accent whichever bird design we're doing. So let me show you this one. It's just a cap of green wool, and there are 3 small leaf shapes that are tacked onto the base cap. There's a flower shape and then a vintage button. And if you've been in my classes, you know that I'm all about the layering. And so literally these layers of wool with the button on top are just stacked and secured together before the cap is attached to the berry. So again, these are Birdsong Berries. They're just on a neutral creamy vanilla bean linen from R&R Reproductions, but lots and lots of neutrals out there are going to be just fine for these. Birdsong Berries. Next up is something I'm calling Featherbeds. Featherbeds is based, well, it actually was kind of inspired by one of my very first designs called Friends and Feathers. And there were 2 phrases in those designs. One says, "Friends gather here," and the other one says, "Featherbeds for rent." Rent with a W, like wrens, you'll see. So I've pulled those same little phrases out. And then I've also I was also inspired. If you followed me in recent years, you know that I've started to accumulate a very small collection of little teeny tiny antique pattern books from the late 19th century. And they're fascinating. I adore these things. And one thing that always strikes me is the quirky, funky little birds that are included in these, and then obviously found on some samplers. And so I wanted to have some fun with those birds. And so this is the Featherbeds for rent. And I just took several of these little bird designs and included them, you know, their little flock gathering, right? So this one Obviously it says Featherbeds for Rent. It's done in a very kind of prim color palette mounted on this board from the 141 Design Company. You would have lots and lots of options for this. Simple design, doesn't take very long to stitch, and the birds are just too fun. I did do a berry right here. And this is also birds and motifs taken from those old pattern books, which are printed in black and white. There's no coloring on these. And so I can pick and choose my colors. And if you'll notice, these black birds almost create more of a border pattern for the flower motifs, but those are actually the birds. I added 2 little teeny birds on the back of the berry. Simple little berry top treatment. Again, layering wools that complement the design. And there are some black straight pins tucked in there. And then just a little gourd pin with some vintage buttons off the side. I took some additional, just for fun this time. It's very subtle, so I don't think you'd be able to see it unless you're actually looking at it. But you can see there are these little black straight pins. You might be able to find them as mourning pins. And I actually took more of those black straight pins and inserted them into each of the eyes of these birds that create this pattern on the berry. Again, it's very, very subtle, but when you get close, you can see the difference in texture, and it's one of those interesting little details that is fun to include. Now, I know not everybody appreciates or enjoys this prim color palette, so I created another model with the Friends Gather Here phrase that is completely different. Same set of birds, but just some fun with colors and a completely different look. So feel free, have fun with this. See, same set of birds, 2 different phrases, 2 completely different looks. The berry, too, could be stitched in this way with whatever color birds, all of one color bird, or several color of birds like it is here. Have some fun with it. But Featherbeds for Rent and Friends Gather Here. Everything in the chart pack titled Featherbeds. On to the next. This is called Forget Me Not. I have, and I'm very fortunate, my great-grandmother, I have her autograph book that was gifted to her when she was perhaps 8, 10, 12 years old. And all of these wonderful little snippets that people wrote, some very serious verses, some very brief and simple, some are kind of quirky and fun and silly, and some are just, it's just kind of everything in between. It's just charming. And one of those was written from who I can only assume was a friend of hers, and she wrote in my grandmother Lizzie's autograph book, "I only ask this little spot to write the word forget me not." So that little verse is what's on this pen pillow. And down here you'll notice that I have added initials and a date, because the person who wrote this, her initials were JP, and the entry is dated 1883. Now the pattern bands that you see on here and kind of the overall look, those all are again inspired by some of these little antique pattern books that I have. So the little pattern bands and borders that you see here come from one of those little teeny tiny books with this verse. Now, there are berries. Again, this is all more about the patterns in those little antique books. And I have learned through my friend Claudia Dutcher-Kistler, who is our expert about the Bristol orphanage samplers, that these little motifs that we see in these little tiny pattern books of the time are often found in those Bristol orphanage samplers that are so treasured by those of us who love this craft of ours. And so these motifs and patterns come from one of those little books. Here we've got a bird and a crown and a cross. There's a little arrow. There's a little dog, a butterfly. Some little floral motifs, just all kinds of things on this one. And then this berry is stitched more kind of horizontally and then finished, but there's horizontal rows of these border bands. And if you're familiar with Bristol samplers, you know there are always many, many border bands that are stitched into those samplers. Now I did this little trio. We've got the 2 berries and the pin pillow. These are stitched on a neutral Picture This Plus fabric called Bramble, but again, lots of neutrals will work. And these are 2 shades of blue. So it's not technically monochromatic, but they're tonal. There's a little bit of contrast between the 2 to add a little dimension. So if you prefer green, or if you want red, browns, whatever is your thing, it would be easy enough to pick just 2 tonal shades of your favorite color. Find a fabric that you love them with, and stitch this same thing. Blue happens to be my favorite color, and so it's kind of easy for me to go to shades of blue when I do something like this. Again, this one is called Forget Me Not. Next up, this is a design that was done as an exclusive for an event last winter, about a year ago this time. And now I'm ready to share it with everybody. The theme at the time was just, you know, stitchy friendships, basically. And so what we have here is the chart packer. The title is called Friends and Stars. Good friends are like stars. You don't always see them, but you know they are always there. So this is a nice size little piece. It's not overly large. You could finish it several different ways. Here it's mounted on a wood plaque. Frame it, perhaps a box top. Lots of options here. Again, this is mostly monochromatic. There is a couple shades of blue and then some white details. And this is a mother of pearl button from my collection. Any vintage button or other fun button that notes your friendship. And again, whatever colorway you might want. You might want a brighter look. So maybe bright reds or purples or something like that on a brighter fabric. Again, have fun with it. And a berry was designed to go along with it. This echoes the needle motif that you see there for Stitchy Friends. And then some of the other motifs in this design that work their way around the berry to create those patterns. It's subtle, but just for fun. The white detail here, which is the thread through the needle, is stitched in a silver metallic. It's a Rainbow Gallery little Petite's Treasure braid in a silver color. If you like a little bit of that flash or bling, it's completely optional. Again, since it's kind of not quite monochromatic, but somewhat monochromatic, the top treatment is also rather simple. Cuts of wool, another mother of pearl button, and some ribbon. A nice, fairly simple and really fairly quick to stitch project for maybe a good stitchy friend of yours. Again, it's called Friends and Stars. All right, moving right along. I have something here that I'm going to show just a little peek. This year I'm trying something a little bit different in Nashville, or at least something that I haven't done for a few years. For many, many years, and I've been doing this year now for 25 years, everything that we brought new to Nashville was the big reveal. We didn't have all of the social media and the internet and all these previews like what I'm doing right now for you. And so when the shop owners came to Nashville, everything was a big reveal. We don't do that so much anymore, and there are a lot of reasons either way, and I'm not going to go into that here, but sometimes it's nice to just have to keep something back as a little surprise. And so that's what I'm going to do here. And I've got one of my 7 new titles that I've given the shop owners all the details in terms of fabrics that I used, all those things, but I have not put out any full images. And so I'm going to tell you about it, but again, I'm not going to show you anything because like the reveal, we're going to make that happen in Nashville. And then we'll be able to put photos out and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to give you a little peek. It's called Voice of the Garden. So obviously it's a garden theme. It's also based on or inspired by another piece of my collection of antique patterns. This one was hand colored, or at least roughly printed. So you had a sense of colors. It's a beautiful little floral border that I've incorporated into this. What I'm going to show you here is the berry. There is a little design that I've stitched a couple of different counts of fabric. That's like a mini sampler or pin pillow. And then I've done a berry. So I'm going to show you the top of the berry. So you'll see the color scheme that I'm using. It's the only look I'm going to give you. And then I'm going to also show you that I'm including, there are 3 little brass charms. Might have seen 2 of them right here. There's a 3rd little itty bitty one. And so each, doesn't really, I guess it shows better that way. So each chart pack comes, basically it's a small, medium, and larger brass bee included. So you can use them any way you want. It might depend on what count fabric you choose to stitch the design on, which is a neutral. I will say that. Lots of neutrals will work on this one as well. And so the count fabric may determine which size bee you use, or just your personal preference, whether you're stitching the berry or whether you're stitching the other design, all of that. But that's all I'm going to give you right now. So that's a little bit of a surprise for everybody. Okay. The other thing, I've got 2 more. Spend a little bit of time on these next 2. As I noted, this year is 25 years for me in designing, and who knew? I have to say, when I started this 25 years ago, I had no concept that I would be doing this 25 years later. That amount of time just was not registering. I was just jumping in and hoping to make it work, but here we are. In addition to 25 years, this year is also, believe it or not, 10 years of berries. And so you've already seen that I'm putting out several new berry designs. But the other thing that I'm doing is I have put together a book when not too long after I started publishing berry patterns, I was invited by shops to teach a berry finishing class. And so I've done that many, many times in the last 10 years. And for most, not all, but most of those, there was a small little quick to stitch berry design that came with the class. And that way, you know, you take the class, you have all this information in your head. So if you don't have one already stitched, here's one that won't take you very long, and then you can put it together while the class information was still kind of fresh in your head. I have selected 8 of those from over the years, 8 of those little class designs. So they're going to be new to most of you, because sometimes this class was maybe only 15 or 20 people. And so I've pulled together 8, and then I've created one more brand new berry, and I've put everything in a large format book called Life is Sweet. And the new berry is this sweet berry right here. And then there are the 8 other berries. Now this book, this isn't the final copy, it's kind of a loose version. It's my draft and my proofing, but it's got full color images, it's got templates, it's got charts for each of the 9 berries. It's got more color, there are color images of the berry and the top treatment for each of the 9 berries. There are finishing instructions, top treatment details. There are also templates and more photos. There's a lot packed into this book. And so I hope it provides you with lots of enjoyable berry making time and gives you a little more information, a little more confidence maybe for finishing the berries and doing the top treatments. Maybe you've taken my class, but it's been a while and you need a little refresher, or maybe you just want a book with 9 berries in it. So the 9 berries look like this. There's a little bit of everything here. There are a couple of them that I would think of as fall and autumn themed. There is a stitch berry. There's one that's more of a burr winter berry. There's a couple of them that are seaside themes. I've got a welcome berry. I've got the amber waves berry. I've had a couple of people ask about this recently because somebody on their YouTube or Instagram had posted their finish of this. And so I've had people ask if it was available, and I had to tell them, I'm sorry, no, it was an exclusive for a class, but here you are. So there are, again, 8 different berries from classes. So there may be 1 or 2 of them that look familiar to some of you, or to you if you're, as a shop owner, if you're watching this. The brand new berry is the sweet berry, and it's just a big strawberry with colorful, pretty berries surrounding it. And this top treatment, again, remember I talked about layers of wool, this lovely green wool, couple of leaf shapes cut. This is a lighter shade of green. Then there are a couple of circles of wool layered on top with a vintage button that was just the right shade of green. How about that? And then I have just another button company has these Darling Bee pins. And you'll see I put in some purple straight pins. That's what these are right here, just because it's great color. So this is the sweet berry that is the front and center brand new berry for the book. Okay, so this is like 18 pages. There's lots and lots and lots here. So I hope you find it fun, useful, informative. And if you're a berry lover, you've got to have one, right? Okay, lastly, I am doing a reproduction sampler and presenting that. I have a friend who lives nearby who's in recent years been collecting samplers, and she graciously let me kind of just dig through her little stash and pull several that I might want to chart and reproduce. And this just jumped out immediately. We were looking through them and saw the sampler, and then a couple more, we saw another sampler, and I says, Rita, look at this. These have got to be sisters. So I'm going to show you, hoping I can avoid the glare. She just had the two framed. She framed them together in the one frame because down the road we didn't want them getting separated, right? So these are the antiques. And shop owners, if you're watching this, I'll have this in Nashville, so you'll be able to see this. So this is the Russel Sisters. We have Isabella and we have M. She only put her first initial. She did not put her full name. It could very well be Mary. There's just no way to know because there's no information that came with these. This is Isabella's. The thing, Isabella is, I'm guessing, the older of the two sisters for a few different reasons. Let me see if I can hold both of these up for you. Can you see the similarities? The pattern bands, the floral bands. Okay. So Isabella, she stitched hers on a higher count linen. It is there's more here. It's a larger stitch count. She has, her border is a little bit more complex. There's a little bit more to her overall border. She has more of the specialty stitches. There are eyelets, your typical eyelet alphabets, right, that we love to hate. There are four-sided stitches in here. There are a lot of rice stitches. Now, all of those stitches, if you're not into the specialty stitches, you do know that you can just make cross stitches to replace those. Those aren't difficult to switch out if you'd like. But the color, you know, this is a lot of times we have less colorful samplers, and I love that there are kind of burgundy purples and almost turquoise blue in both of these. They're really beautiful in their color. Both sisters noted the town or the village of Edelston, and there is a village in Scotland known as Edelston, excuse me. So this is Isabella's. Now M sampler, the same, I mean, almost every band is the same. You know, even the crown motifs are the same. So she's done, again, she's done alphabets at the top, and then she's done these same bands, but she's stitched this on a larger count linen. It's closer to 30 or 32 instead of the 38 or 40. And she has simplified her border. And because she is stitching on a larger count, she's also stitching less. Her stitch count is smaller. So that's why the two samplers are similar in size. But it's also because this is on a larger count fabric with a smaller stitch count. because she has simply done a little bit less. And so I feel like she's probably the younger of the two sisters, perhaps a less experienced needleworker, although she did a lovely job still. Hers is a very similar color scheme, but there are some slight differences in the colors between the two. Hers has more of the purple tones than Isabella's, and she's got some brighter greens. So there's some little differences like that. Now I did both samplers. Both samplers were done on linens in using wool for the most part, with a few accents of black silk where they were doing black initials. But for the most part, it was wool. I chose to stitch, Isabella's is stitched in overdyed cottons, and M's is stitched in silks. So it's really what you love, what you prefer to work with, what you think you'd like to do on these. In both cases, I've provided DMC equivalents, or at least suggestions for equivalents, so that you can kind of mix and match a little bit as you like. There's a lot there. So both samplers are in another color book. Okay. So we have this large format design. So we have Isabella's. Remember, hers is more detailed, has a larger stitch count. And then we have M's sampler, shows on the back cover. Inside, you'll see full color layouts of each sampler, so that you can kind of cross-reference for your charting. There's the wee bit of, I mean, we really don't have any history on the girls, but I've talked a little bit about the differences between the two samplers and the similarities. You've obviously got color keys and charts. You've got detailed instructions about, you know, where eyelets were used, where four-sided stitches were used, etc., etc. And then both charts for both samplers. On the inside, on the inside back, you'll see a full summary of all the materials that were used. That's obviously with each color key, but there's a quick reference just inside the back cover to summarize everything that was used for each sampler. Okay. So again, two samplers in one book, the Russel Sisters. And that is my Nashville offering this year. Again, I'm celebrating 25 years, 10 years of berries. I hope you love it all, and I hope your shop owners are, in fact, I will not say I hope, I know that your shop owners and retailers are working very hard right now to prepare for Nashville. They are getting a fire hose of information from everybody and trying to get everything organized so that if they place pre-orders or not, when they come to Nashville, they're prepared. Please give your retailers some love. They work extremely hard at market, before and after and during. We have a wonderful time at market, but we're also really tired. So give them some love, give them some patience, and of course your business. All right, everybody, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and enjoy all the new that's coming your way. Thank you for watching. Bye now.